Call to order this College Township Council regular meeting, Thursday, January 19th, 2023. Just so everybody knows, right before this meeting, we did have, was it an executive session?
It was.
It was an executive session for a personnel matter. So now we are into our regular meeting. It's been a long day. Will anyone who can stand and pledge allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thanks. Since we do have some people on Zoom, Mike, would you mind giving a little bit of hybrid meeting protocol?
Sure. So for those on Zoom, just kind of the general approach is during each of the discussion items, the chair will ultimately call for input from the public. At that time, either in the room or on Zoom, we'll ask that those on Zoom raise their hand to be recognized and then unmute when you are recognized and by the chair, and you are free to speak at that time. Otherwise, we would ask that you please remain muted because that helps with the audio here in the room. And if we run into any problems where you can't utilize the raised hand feature, just turn your camera on and wave at the screen, and we will acknowledge you when the opportunity arises.
The high-tech, old-fashioned way. All right, thank you. So first on the agenda is open discussion. Does anybody have something to bring to council's attention that is not already on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to special presentation 1. See some people to present. All right, great. This is MPO update, active and long-range transportation plans.
I'll just do a quick introduction.
Looking at the wrong people.
Carla, I'll do a quick introduction before Jim and Ann get started.
Oh, perfect, thank you.
For the purposes of tonight's meeting, we have with us Jim Saylor, who is the Principal Transportation Planner for the Center County Metropolitan Planning Organization. With him as well is Ann Mesner, who is the Senior Transportation Planner for the MPO. They are here to begin discussions with Council in regards to two significant planning efforts that they're just getting underway with. The Active Transportation Plan, which you should remember from our discussions on the Pedestrian Facilities Master Plan that this was coming, and then also an update to the Long Range Transportation Plan. And I'm not going to steal their thunder. I'm going to go ahead and turn that over to Ann and Jim. And Ann, I have their presentation, so when you're ready, I will move through it.
All right, great, thank you. So we're tag teaming. I'm going first, and then Jim gets to talk more. So we have two big projects, as Mike had alluded to, and we're just going to go to the next slide. Just a little bit of background.
And could I get you to move a little closer to the mic?
Sure.
Or pull it closer?
Yeah, is that better?
It's better for me, thanks.
All right, is that all that counts?
It's a little bit better.
All right.
You could actually pull it towards you.
All right.
I think that's really what
I hit it?
Oh, that's
okay. All right.
Thank you so much.
Sure. We really are kind of an entity that collaborates, and our job is to keep people informed. So, for example, the infrastructure bill, we need to learn about those new bills coming in so we can share that information with our stakeholders. And there are other things that come over in our programming areas that we try to get the word out. And tonight is an example of that, our planning efforts that we're going to be having in the future. So we have these plans that we do periodically. The big one is the long-range plan. Jim's going to talk a bit about that. But we have other programming that we do, and we live in a lot of acronyms, so forgive me for the acronyms. But the Transportation Improvement Program is a 4-year program of planning with funds that we know that we are to receive, and the primary focus is bridges, roads, and transit. The 12-year program is an extension, if you will, of the 4-year. It can be less defined, those outlying years, because sometimes the funding is not as clear, but it still focuses on those facilities. And then the Unified Planning Work Program is really what staff is working toward in terms of a regular work program that we need to meet certain requirements of all these products. Kind of to add to that, there's a lot of funding that's floating out there, and there's federal, state, and local funding. And we try to keep abreast of what communities are doing as well as what the federal side is doing, so we can see what we can do to facilitate improvements. So in terms of the active transportation plan, this is a new endeavor for the MPO. We're kind of biting off a lot here, and we're doing a countywide plan. Some municipalities have done their individual plans, but that really doesn't help the entire county. So there's going to be a lot of data gathering. We do have some already. We have some sidewalk data. We have the region's robust bike route data, but we got to go beyond the region. And so there's going to be some time spent doing that in terms of data gathering, using plans such as the one that you recently worked on, the pedestrian plan, and then trying to get some analysis completed to see where the opportunities are to connect the region to outside the borders, essentially. We are planning on having stakeholder engagement, and that's going to be pretty broad because our rural municipalities don't have the same communication abilities and staff, for that matter. So we're going to have to spend some time not only with the region, but those municipalities to get a line of communication about whether they're even interested in this type of effort. There are some municipalities that we're already meeting with. They want to hear about it, but beyond that, they're not committed. Project listing. So we're going to rely a lot on existing plans for those municipalities that have already developed plans, but then we're going to take it a step further and see where we can go with future projects. And of course, implementation is the hardest. We realize that this is probably a 20-year plan, and we're going to look at making improvements in 5-year increments with probably an update roughly every 5 years. Next slide.
Sorry.
All the slides.
So in terms of modes, we're still hashing that out, and that's why this slide is here. It's obviously bicycles and pedestrians, but it's also getting to public transit, and then I'm calling it wheels. So anything that has a wheel, all right, scooters, it could be buggies, and it might even be ATVs, because our northern municipalities are interested in creating connections there as well. Not sure how far we'll get with that aspect of it, but we have to be cognizant of it. And then, Jim, it's all you.
All right, so as Ann said, right on the heels of the active transportation plan, we'll be picking up the long-range transportation plan. The long-range transportation plan is kind of the big visionary plan for the MPO. It has to look at a 20-year planning horizon. It's to provide an assessment of how the system as a whole across the county is performing, and then it lays out a schedule of projects with the funding that we expect to be available over that 20 years. What do we expect to do to maintain that system? So so it gets into a lot of details, and as Mike said, it's a significant update. Whereas with the active transportation plan, we expect that we'll be able to wrap it up in 15 to 18 months. We're beginning this update on the long-range transportation plan, and we are about, we think, 30 months out from adoption. Federal Highway Administration likes to see you start coordinating with PennDOT and FTA that far out ahead of time, talking about what the methods, the scope, and the major content of the material is going to be. And if we're following our timeline, that 30-month window comes right up in March. Next slide. So these are some of the aspects that we expect to be spending a considerable amount of time on in this update. Compared to previous updates, we're hoping to bring a little bit more data into the process. We're hoping to better document and refine the process that we're using to develop bridge and safety projects. And we expect to get into a few new topics as we talk about the trends that are impacting the transportation system as a whole. Next slide, Nick. When we look back at the last update, our big innovation in that update was the municipal outreach. We went out and we met with every municipality across the Center County area, along with the various planning region areas and the planning commissions. It ended up being something like 48 meetings. In that process, we documented over 900 comments. It resulted in, I think, 25 program projects, about 100 candidate projects, and another 100 plus issues that could become projects with further analysis. So it was a tremendous amount of information. The heavy lift for us was sifting through that and determining the most significant actionable items that needed to be worked on and implemented through the long-range plan. I don't think that we'll be dedicating that same level of depth to this municipal outreach. We are trying to go out and meet with all the municipalities across the county again. I don't expect that we'll spend the same amount of time in it and that we'll develop the same number of issues. Mike, if you go to the next slide, please. So if that's the case, and we're not going to just recreate that, what are we trying to do? The first thing is that we want to recap that information. We want to make sure that if you explain to us what your priorities were 4 years ago, that we're checking in to see that those are still your priorities. We'd like to bring, as I said, a little bit more data into the process. There are some new tools available, ways to visualize delay information, more information available on the condition of assets, the roads and bridges that we're talking about. There's information on new topics, things like projected flood risk for the roads and bridges across the county. So we'd like to bring that information in at the front of the process and give municipalities and other stakeholders a chance to react to it. We'd also like to provide some feedback on the projects already programmed in the long-range transportation plan. Too often when we start these processes, we start it from a blank sheet of paper, and the type of thinking is, well, if we're going to do something new, what would it be? We want to make sure that we're having a conversation with you about the things that are already on the tip, the 12-year plan and the long-range plan, and providing some realistic feedback on what it's going to take to bring those projects to construction. So in the memo that Mike forwarded with this, attached to it, you'd be able to find a recap of the 2018 discussion, and then also a table that summarizes some of the projects, the major projects that are programmed on the TIP and 12-year plan. And it includes some pretty accessible projects, bridge rehabilitations, things that fall pretty easily within the budget. If you look a little bit further out, on a region-wide basis, we're holding at least spaceholder funding, anticipating that we'll be able to start construction of the State College Area Connector. So another significant funded project in the 12-year plan for College Township is we've got preliminary engineering set in 2031 to look at widening Park Avenue from where the lane drops at the hospital entrance and carrying that in towards the Arboretum and expanding it out to a 4-lane section. It's a big undertaking. We've got a substantial amount of funding committed to it. And in order to keep that moving, we'll have to keep affirming, one, that is a priority for our region, and two, working proactively with the department and with other stakeholders to keep that process moving forward. Otherwise, projects like that tend to hit difficulties, and whether it be with the funding or some of the very preliminary design concerns, and frequently we respond to that by taking time to sort those issues out and the projects get delayed. So we wanted to share that information about what is programmed for your municipality and give you a chance to think about that as we're asking you to reconfirm the priorities. Mike, if you take us forward one more slide. So that rolls us right into that discussion. Again, on that first page of the notes from 2018, you'll see a couple of the corridors that were highlighted in that discussion. And I just wanted to check in and give you a chance to respond and either confirm that those are still the corridors that you're looking at, that the issues on that first sheet are the things that rise to the top, or to send us in another direction, or just even tell us that you need a little bit more time to consider it and you'll provide the input as we move forward.
All right, can we pull that up? Or when you say first sheet, do you mean first slide or first sheet of the?
Yeah, let me just jump out of your presentation here for a second, Jim.
Yeah, if you go down below the slides, yeah.
Is that SP1C? SP1?
Yeah. All right.
I believe that's what he's speaking to.
Eastbound 322, westbound 322, 322 eastbound ramp? Is that what we're looking at?
That's that same sheet where the discussion starts, and the 26 interchange seemed to jump out at me in that conversation. There are also some notes there about the 150 and College Avenue corridor. There was some discussion of the Park Avenue corridor.
Okay, so that whole memo
Yeah.
there. Yeah, okay. Well, let's give council just a quick second to review. It may be a couple days since they looked over that. And while they do that, I'll start with Eric, who probably knows it by heart.
Well, I don't, as Jim said, this is a very high-level presentation. I think what MPO staff is looking for at this point, is there anything on that list that we've done 180 degree on, or is there anything not on that list that has shown up, in the subsequent 4 years, just in very general terms, before they get to the point where they're sitting down with staff to talk about the projects in more detail. So this is just a very broad, your broad first instinct type thoughts at this point. And a couple of those that would jump out to me are, well, first of all, the one that's on the list, one of our big concerns 4 years ago was the flooding down here by Clasters. I mean, there's been some work done
Yeah.
there. Is that,
You're dating yourself.
I'm sorry.
Why do you say?
Okay, how about this, Clark
Please.
Motors?
Yes.
All right, never mind. That kind of stuff. Is there anything like that on the list that, there really is no point in coming back and talking about? And then on the other end of the spectrum, we just made a request of the MPO to look at changes to 322 downstream of the State College Area Connector. And thanks to the efforts of the MPO staff and to Mike, who, by the way, was the person who attended most of those 45 meetings 4 years ago that Jim
About
referenced.
90% of them.
About 90% of them. Yeah, I attended, I think, 4, and that was a heavy lift. And this guy was, well, anyways, thanks to their efforts, we've got a remarkably responsive response from PennDOT already. They're willing to sit and meet and talk, which I think is everything we could have asked for at this point, because we would need, without that, we would have to we would ask to program some money on the tip for preliminary engineering and design, because we'd have to come up with a starting point. So I think that's the kind of feedback, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's all you're really looking for today is are we still in the ballpark for a starting point?
I think the flooding along College Avenue, that's a great example with the improvements that, in the notes it talks about pending improvements to be made to the pipe, and there were some concerns expressed about whether making those improvements would have downstream effects on Millbrook Marsh. From the sounds of the comments you started with tonight, it sounds like they have addressed a lot of the problem. And like and that the downstream effects that you were worried about necessarily haven't surfaced. So that's good input, and that is the type of thing that we're looking for in this process.
Because generally then, at the next step, you meet with staff. Mostly you're meeting with managers, boots on the ground type folks. So this would be the opportunity for that very high level policy direction or focus. Should you not agree with any of the carryover starting point that MPO staff would be working from when they meet with Mike, Don, Adam?
Amy?
Surely council members and elected officials are welcome, and you probably had some, I know we had a few. Well, a few of the municipalities we went to, there was no staff.
Right.
So it was just elected officials, the smaller ones.
Right, well, I do think, I'm sitting here thinking, well, gee, I don't know, I haven't asked anybody.
And it's a long process, sorry to interrupt, but like you said, there'll be opportunity then maybe for some back and forth once this starts with council on.
Right.
Priorities.
So, there's the political will, and then there's where the rubber meets the road, which is staff. And so I would like to hear from both of us tonight, just run through. Amy's not here, who would I'm sure have.
She's online.
Oh, she is, great, who I'm sure has an opinion or two. So let's do that. I think Eric summed it up pretty well too. If there's anything you see on here that you're like, yes, or absolutely not, gut reaction, I think that sounds like what you're looking for. Or, hey, what about this, so let's just do that. You mentioned a couple.
Yeah, well, let me start by saying I'm quite content with the progress that we've made so far with PennDOT on our 322 ask.
The responses to that letter.
Yeah, I mean, we would like to see something on the tip eventually, but we really can't get there without some of the effort that PennDOT has offered to do so far. So my suggestion in that particular case is to continue to let that process move in the direction that it's moving. Mike's request has generated an offer from PennDOT to meet and talk, and gosh, it almost sounds like a willingness to do some very preliminary engineering, number running, number crunching.
Yeah, like somehow
options.
in our letter, we've started something.
Right, which is as much as we could have possibly asked for, I think, at this state. And honestly, we would need that information before we would move forward with any kind of MPO action anyways. So
Great.
From that standpoint, that's my opinion on that one, which is kind of the big one right now.
Okay.
And the rest of the stuff, I think I'm like you, I'd like to hear from staff because I don't see any of it jumping out or taking precedent over anything else. So, some of it's been dealt with.
Right.
Out here at the pedestrian crossing and.
Okay, Dustin?
I think we could safely take Pike Street off now, right? Or do we want to keep it on?
Okay. Anything else?
No, I mean, my biggest one, and it's on there, but I think we could get more specific with it, is in the mall area with 150 and 26 and how we see that developing with the Dale areas, Dale Summit area plan and all that. So I think we need to intertwine those priorities. That's it.
Great.
I don't know all the background, as I'm new to council. I'm interested in the Park Avenue projects. That's an area that I work in.
Sure.
And understanding better the expansion project going forward, so I would need more background before I could really comment fully.
Thank you. Rich?
Right, as long as our letter regarding 322 West is incorporated in the key corridors and stuff, you put it on a list so that it keeps percolating back up as this did, and everything. A couple of other ones that I was just thinking of on some of the flooding stuff we were talking about, College Avenue and stuff, and I think Penn State needs to be commended as well. Several of their projects have incorporated water that used to come downstream, they've kept on site, and that's helped the process too, and if that can continue, that'll help that. The other thing that we've done that I think staff will share with them is our official map tweaks to put pedestrian and bike and all that good stuff in there, so it has that visibility, and then it becomes part of these discussions going forward. So.
Yeah. Okay, staff?
There's
Don?
a couple things I'd like to bring up. One of them is the eastbound ramp off of 322 onto College Avenue. When we talked a few years ago, what would happen in the mornings frequently is the traffic would actually back up so that it was blocking 322. So there'd be basically one lane of traffic on 322. I think basically we're back to pre-COVID numbers, but I have not seen that happen since COVID. So I don't know whether we're still seeing reduced volumes there or whether it's just people working at home, but I haven't seen it back up that badly yet. Maybe I haven't been there at the right time. Brush Valley Road Bridge is on this. Obviously, we did that 2 years ago now, and that should be in good shape for quite a while. Another thing is the pipes there at Blaze Alexander and your building center. They have not changed. So there's, now PennDOT did redo the bridge there under, at College Avenue, but that was just a deck replacement. But that bridge has way more capacity than is needed. It's those pipes at Blaze Alexander and
YBC.
YBC that are the issue.
But also potentially the saving grace.
There are people who have said that if that would get opened up so that it would actually take the 100-year flows down through there, it could possibly blow out the marsh.
Right, so that still isn't.
So that would probably take a lot of engineering analysis to see what could you expand it by and not hurt. You might not be able to get all the way up to the 100-year storm, but you might be able to make it so it doesn't flood 4 times a year, 5 times a year.
Right,
Those are the 3 items.
yeah. Thank you, Don. I'll go to Amy then next.
Yes, so the ones that I had thought about are actually on there. Old Whitehall, we do still get complaints regarding the drainage there behind the retreat and from some of the residents and how it just kind of lays in that area. And the other one that I thought of specifically was Elmwood and College Avenue right there by the building. That does seem to be a high crash area, or at least with my office looking out over the intersection, it does seem to, you know, with the tires squealing and et cetera, and of course the pedestrians crossing over to the brewery, et cetera. So I think everything that I was thinking through my mind, I do see on here. I'll probably reserve the right to think a little harder, a little longer.
Great, that's Amy Kerner, the Director of our Public Works Department. Thank you, Amy. Anybody else? Adam?
Nothing more to add.
Lindsay?
No, thanks. I just think that concentrating on Dale Summit
Yeah.
is what I'm interested in.
Great, Mike?
So I have the interesting perspective, as Eric alluded to, is I was on the other side of the table when this discussion happened back in 2018. And what I'll credit MPO staff on is at that time in 18, we kind of took a snapshot in time and asked a lot of broad-ranging questions. And now they're bringing it into focus.
Okay.
And kind of what they can do within the context of a long-range transportation plan, which is critical. And also, you know, when that happens, for those listening at home and maybe not familiar with the process in the room, your wish list, you're lucky if you get 1 or 2 of them off of there. So it becomes a question of councils across the county as to what are your highest priorities. And there may be needs that you just can't reach, so which ones are 1, 2, and 3. So I appreciate how Jim and Ann have structured this. For me, one of the things that I would watch beyond what we've already asked for is particularly right out here in front of this building, and something where as Dustin alluded to, where plans start to meet. The bridge over 322 on 26, at some point, that bridge will need either a major rehab or a replacement. And that's your opportunity to kind of strike when the iron's hot, to make those multimodal connections, get your, pedestrian and bike facilities across there, and maybe restructure that interchange in such a way that's more accommodating and able to make that jump that we recognize right now is not something we can do. And even in the pedestrian master plan, we showed that. You just can't do it without that help. So those are the things that I think, as Jim alluded to, bringing more data to the process will be really important, and then starting to dovetail these plans together. And I think for council, as we start moving towards more of the end of the weeds discussions later in this process with the MPO, what we're going to be doing with our CIP and kind of strategic planning, we'll tease some of that out for you as well. So it's kind of hard to answer off the cuff here tonight, but that process kind of works well with what the MPO is trying to do.
Okay. Rich?
Just one alibi, I mean, our Path to Campus project, is there anything that we need in this that has a way into this in any sense?
Yeah, I think it's important. Obviously, we're still in the holding
right.
pattern with the grants, and the grants could be our game changer for that project. But certainly, if those are unsuccessful at this time, we want to have that show up, or at least be pushed forward as a priority for the MPO. And again, the active transportation plan, our pedestrian facilities master plan, how they kind of speak to what's in the long-range plan will be important.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Follow up? All right, anybody from the public or online? Is anybody able to see the group? Any hands?
Not seeing any. Most of them are
Okay.
here for a specific topic.
Great. I just have a question. First of all, I think it's really valuable to sit here and listen to how all the plans that, we've worked so hard on, or we've learned about, or we experience in these other areas touch each other and incorporate, and that speaks to the good work that's going on in this county at large. Like, it's just so wonderful to be a part of a community that gets things going, not just talking about them and sitting them on a shelf, that quip that everybody likes to warn against. I really just find it very engaging and energizing that we're having this discussion. So on that topic, how can we as the local government pull feedback from our citizens to help inform this process? Do you have suggestions to us or recommendations?
So I don't think we have a clear step-by-step description at this
Sure.
time, but for each of these plans, we are working on that engagement process. And each of them will have a public-facing process to solicit information on needs and projects, and in particular with the long-range plan, to share some of the information that we can now access and share it out for response. So as we come up on those windows, we'll share that information with you, with staff, and we'd ask you to share it with your residents so that we're driving participation to that. It's one thing to create a lovely tool or survey. It's quite another to help people to understand how it fits into the bigger picture, to understand how the input that they provide in it is actually likely to be implemented, and how their answers and input actually matter to the process. So as we're working through those pieces, we'll share the information with you, and we will very much appreciate the cooperation in getting that information out.
Yeah, great.
Hey, could I follow up on that?
Please.
Having had some experience, as Jim noted, the MPO has a very well-developed public outreach process for all these exercises. So I think a good complementary role for each of the participating municipalities is to help get the word out and support the existing input gathering structure that the MPO already has, instead of trying to duplicate it.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of what.
Get people
complement
and
it.
push them out to the public meetings. These guys put a lot of effort and time into these public meetings with the maps and the staffing and the taking of input, and I think the most valuable role we could play is to just help get the word out to folks to utilize the existing structure that's in place.
Yeah. Great. So do you need anything else from us?
No, I think this is good coverage of the questions that we asked. The next couple slides just kind of wrap this up and provide contact information. So I very much appreciate your time tonight and your consideration of the issues.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you too. All right, I inadvertently skipped over an agenda item with nothing on it, which is any new agenda items. So I have a feeling there will be one.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Richard.
could I make a motion to add a agenda item for the appointment of members to the Thompson Woods Preserve Governance Committee?
Second.
Oh, thank you. Any discussion on that? All those in favor say aye. Okay, that will be added to the agenda. Let's just get that going.
Do you want to do it right now?
Yep, let's get it
Okay.
done.
Adam, if you could you possibly give us just a quick backstory of the Thompson Woods Preserve Governance
Thank you,
Committee?
Adam.
Sure. Over the last number of months, College Township has worked in partnership with State College Borough to develop intermunicipal cooperation agreement that would allow for joint participation between the two municipalities relative to providing some additional structure and governance to the Thompson Woods Preserve area itself. As many of you know, the Thompson Woods Preserve was created approximately 20-some years ago at this point in conjunction with some other residential development that was occurring, although it was a separate issue and matter unto itself. And over these past 20-some years, the preserve has basically functioned exactly as you might imagine as a preserve. There's been relatively little development of any type of amenities. There are some trails, and to the extent that it has been maintained, the Center Region Parks and Rec agency has participated along with College Township at various points in providing some maintenance and some very few bare essential amenities. As the area has continued to grow and as the preserve itself continues to be well used by residents and neighborhoods in that immediate area, it's come to a point where there needs to be a little bit more attention paid to the area. And through the creation of this governance committee and also a subsidiary advisory committee, we believe that we'll be able to more effectively manage some of the issues that we've been dealing with over the last several years. So essentially what we have provided for is there is an advisory committee, and again, that is intended to provide information up to a governance committee. The advisory committee is to be populated by representatives from at least 2 neighborhood HOA, homeowners associations. There are a variety of other ancillary players that are involved, including folks from Penn State Ag, from Center County Soil Conservation. Mike, who am I missing on the advisory committee?
Center Region Parks.
Center Region Parks.
DCNR.
And DCNR.
Yeah,
right.
I'm forgetting one, but yeah.
Clearwater.
Clearwater,
thank you.
Clearwater.
Thank you.
Very
Of
much.
course.
Yes, yeah, very important in the
Yes.
overall creation of Thompson Woods Preserve. Thank you, Dustin. The governance committee is to be populated by 2 appointees from College Township, made by council, 2 appointees from the borough, made by State College Borough, and then 1 non-affiliated, non-College Township, non-State College Borough representative from the Center Region Parks and Recreation Authority. So at this point in time, there have been no nominations, or I'm sorry, no appointments that have been made The borough is in process of doing their interviews for their appointees to the governance committee. And I believe that we are in a position this evening to move forward with College Township's appointees
Yes.
to the governance committee. And I believe we still have some outreach to do with the Center Region Parks and Recreation Authority, but I'm very confident that that can be done relatively, very quickly. So that's essentially the overview, thumbnail sketch of what this is all about. But if there are questions, I'll be happy to try to answer. Mike's been very instrumental in working through this process as well.
I cannot imagine how there could be any questions after that wonderfully
Yes.
thorough explanation.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to appoint Mr. Earl Moore and Mr. Eric Silver to the Thompson Woods Preserve Governance Committee.
Second.
All right, any discussion, or I will give an opportunity for questions. Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? All right. To Earl Moore and Eric Silver, we thank you for your volunteer and service in this new committee. And we look forward to seeing Thompson Woods further preserved and wooded, as the case may be. All right, thank you for indulging us on that new agenda item. Next we have Plan 1, Mount Nittany Medical Center Bed Tower Sketch Plan.
All right. Thank you. So in the past, we've had some success with sketch plans. This is a process permitted in, optional process in the subdivision and land development ordinance. And the Planning Commission saw this Tuesday night and they had a few comments. And mostly they were, one was, this is a lovely plan. This plan, they were surprised at the increase or lack thereof of beds that are being permitted or being proposed here with this. And also there were thoughts of efforts to manage and maintain the flow around the building. So the Planning Commission did have their opportunity to provide their input on Tuesday, and now we have representatives here from Mount Nittany and others here in person and online, and they are here to present the sketch plan to council tonight.
Okay, please come to the lectern.
Good evening. My name is Joe Seeker. I work for Plant Moran Cressa. We are engaged with Mount Nittany to basically manage the implementation of their master facilities plan. With me tonight is Jim Routh from Stantec Architecture, our project architect, and Mark Seville from HRG Engineers. On the Zoom is Brian Roach, the Chief Financial Officer for Mount Nittany Health, and we'll begin our comments with Brian.
Thanks, Joe. Happy New Year, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here tonight to present this exciting project. As Joe said, I'm Brian Roach. I'm the Chief Financial Officer at Mount Nittany Health. And, I'll make my comments really brief before turning back over to Joe to go through the sketch plan. But we are really excited about this strategic investment because we believe it builds on our commitment to our mission of healthier people, stronger communities. And, as we go through these slides, hopefully that becomes evident to everyone here. So thanks for giving us this opportunity. Joe, take it away.
Refer to my colleagues.
Okay. We'll do a start. Can you expand it to full screen? That's that half the image on it there.
Can everybody hear? Okay.
Mark, maybe you could put, yeah, thanks.
Yeah, you
Maybe
can lift
pull
it up too.
higher.
It's flexible.
There.
Take it off.
Thank you.
There we go. This sheet is, on the sketch plan, set of sheets is really the existing condition of the medical campus at Mount Nittany Medical Center facility. The project site itself, where we are doing the developments, is mostly on this edge of campus. On this side, we have some existing facilities and parking areas that we are going to be redeveloping. as a part of of this portion of the project. Can you go to the next slide? You skipped over one. There we go. Yep.
One more.
One more. There we go. That's an overall. I'm going to let Jim Routh from Stan Tech talk more about the specifics overall from the site and the project parameters.
The project consists of three structures. They're in the southwest corner of the campus where the existing healing garden is located. There are plans for a new parking garage, about 170 cars. Next to that, to the east, is the new 10-story bed tower, which includes 168 new private patient rooms. And then in the southeast corner of the site, to the east of the existing cancer center parking lot, is a new central energy plant to support the project. Couple of items of note. Obviously, the entry to the campus remains as is. We are also maintaining the loop traffic around the campus. And next slide, please.
Wait,
Yeah, go ahead.
While we're here. From a planning purpose also, we're taking into account the space that's necessary for us to be able to build this. So we're working with the university, and temporarily we're going to be utilizing a portion of the field adjacent to the campus so that we can stage all the construction activity and also offset some of the displaced parking while we're building the new construction until the new parking deck comes online to help facilitate managing the amount of parking that's necessary to keep the active medical facility functioning.
So a close-up of the southwest corner of the campus showing the new parking garage and then also the 10-story bed tower. You'll notice that there's a road between the garage and the tower that will provide access for cancer center patients. So it will give them a more direct path to get to the cancer center parking. After you enter the campus, you'll be able to immediately go to the new garage, or the project will create a new front door, a new main entrance for the hospital. So if you're not going to the garage, you could drop somebody off at the new drop-off there at the new front door. We do have a covered walkway connector from the garage to the new bed tower to provide weather protection for visitors and patients. We also engaged Trans Associates for a parking study for the project. Trans analyzed the parking current state during construction and then also after the project is completed, and we have sufficient parking for all three phases of the project. By constructing the new 170 space parking garage, this is going to allow all patients and visitors to conveniently park at the new front door of the hospital. With the exception of the ED patients, they still have parking in the emergency lot, and cancer center patients still have parking in the cancer center lot. Next slide, please. Did you want to add anything? That's good. And this is the third piece of the project, a 2-story central energy plant. It includes chillers and emergency generators required to support the new project. Construction of this building does delete some of the existing parking spaces. However, we still have sufficient parking for the cancer center patients. The demand for the cancer center is about 36 parking spaces. So we still maintain sufficient parking.
And in this slide, we also see the existing stormwater management basin that manages stormwater for the project site. Portions of the existing facility site actually drain down towards Orchard Road. Currently, it contributes to some of the stormwater runoff that you experience down at the bottom of Orchard Road. With this project, we're actually redirecting a good portion, 20% approximately, of the impervious runoff that was going towards Orchard Road into the stormwater basin, which has been designed with a capacity to accept that additional flow so that we can decrease the flow issues that you may have along Orchard Road as much as possible within our existing facilities here, so that we're not increasing any of the flows, we're actually decreasing the flows that are going towards Orchard Road with this project.
And next slide. I think this is the final slide. So our preliminary renderings for the new bed tower, various views. One thing you may notice is that the new building is a little more transparent than the existing buildings. We are trying to incorporate more glass to open up the patient rooms to natural daylight and views to the mountains beyond. But yet we are incorporating other masonry and brick elements that will be more cohesive with the existing architecture of the hospital. We're also starting to study the signage. Our preliminary plans for the signage is the Mount Nittany logo and the hospital H on the north facade of the building, and then really the same approach on the south facade, the Mount Nittany logo and the hospital H. The intent for the signage is to make sure that people coming to the hospital from the surrounding highway system can easily identify the hospital.
That pretty much concludes our presentation, and we're open to any conversation or suggestions you may have.
Great, thank you so much. And thank you also, it was already alluded to, but for coming with the sketch plan. It really just helps us have that conversation at this point, see what you're talking about, see, offer some feedback, see if maybe, we can offer anything to you. So with that said, are there any questions to start from staff or council?
No, I don't have any.
Yeah, Eric.
Could I get Lindsay to just expand a little bit more on what PC's comments were before we go into comments?
Absolutely, that's a great idea. Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, so Ms. Corey stated the plan looks lovely.
Oh.
Was there consensus around anything as far as concerns or support or changes from PC?
We do have the PC rep.
Oh, yeah, we do have.
You certainly do.
Do you have anything to add?
Well, first of all, Robert Hoffman, Planning Commission member, we did observe this presentation and we were encouraged, I think, by the openness of telling us how they derived the plan. They're interfacing with the Alpha Fire Company in terms of accessibility, and the other studies of transportation impressed us. We were, as a group, not concerned, but pleased that they were addressing some of the stormwater management components that go down over the hill into Puddin Town. We were also impressed with the renderings in the sense that they're trying to incorporate the vernacular of the new building into the existing infrastructure. That was impressive to us. Again, these sketch plans, as you mentioned, are very important because we could offer any comments. I think to the major review of the Planning Commission, we thoroughly accepted this presentation and are looking forward to seeing the land development plans.
Great, thank you, Bob. Lindsay, do you have anything to add to that?
One thing they did, they spoke a little bit about beds, and someone asked, since they were all going to be private rooms, if that's going to have any impact on the cost going up for patients, and their answer was no. The price per bed is the same, whether it's a single bed or a double bed.
Okay, great. Any other questions? I just have,
We're going to do comments separate?
Yeah, I just thought if anybody had questions.
I did have a question.
Go ahead.
The existing hospital building, what will be done with the space? You'll be pulling beds out of the existing space. What are the plans for the space that will be left there? There's a lot of space.
The new bed tower will have 168 private patient rooms. The existing bed tower 85 beds will remain there. There's also plans for backfill of administrative spaces.
Okay. And is there a plan in place to replace or build something into the design that would replace the healing garden?
Absolutely. In fact, we just had a meeting with stakeholders today. There'll be a new healing garden, not only for patients and visitors, but also for staff. And then we're actually taking 99% of the pieces of the existing healing garden and relocating them in the new gardens.
Great, thank you. And one last question. I know you're increasing the number of buildings on campus, and I know at a previous meeting, we had talked about addressing concerns. I don't know if that's an issue for tonight or at a separate meeting, but you are expanding the number of buildings substantially on campus, and the traffic flow now can be a little confusing at times. So how that's all planned out over time, I'd be interested to learn more.
Yeah, addressing concerns.
Yeah.
Addressing addressing
One
concerns.
address,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any comment to that?
When we met earlier with township staff, it was one of the items that was brought up, and it's an ongoing conversation that we're going to work with them on addressing.
Addressing the addressing?
Addressing.
Okay, good. I just had a couple of questions for staff. One is when it comes to impervious coverage of land for this zoning district, how does this touch that?
I can speak to it if you want.
Please.
Ultimately, it's in the medical campus zone, so it's done as a planning unit from the medical campus. And so the impervious area and floor area ratios are related to the entire campus area.
Okay.
It's associated with it. And with what we're doing here with in-building and going higher, we're preserving more of the open space in the surrounding areas in order to accomplish what we're looking to work within in creating proximity spaces that is safer for pedestrians by keeping them closer to the areas where we want to get those points of service.
Okay, so when it comes to impervious coverage before, you can give me vague percentage numbers even, to impervious coverage now, what are we looking at?
The maximum allowable is 60% right now. After the clinical lab project was completed, the medical campus was at 34.75%.
Okay.
And we're going to be increasing that some, but not by a significant amount to even get close to 60%.
Okay, thank you for answering that. And, you know, it's become all the rage. All developers out there start listening. It's all the rage when you even increase your impervious by a little bit to decrease that stormwater runoff. So I really appreciate you calling that out and also working that into your plan, because that's fixing the sins of the past and protecting us in the future and adapting to the changes that are to come. So thank you for that. All right, and now we'll just take comments if there aren't any more questions.
Me?
Yeah, sure, Eric.
I have questions and comments, so it doesn't matter.
Oh, I'm sorry, Rich. You were so quiet over there. Go ahead.
I was waiting my turn. So, just a couple in there. What is the phasing of the work? Will all three, you got a parking garage, bed tower, and the central energy plant, will they all go kick off and move up together, one first, one second?
They're all going to kick off together. They will probably get differing times of occupancy because of the necessity of having the central energy plant online to be able to serve the bed tower project, but those are all relative to the permitting and completion of stages of the project, but it's all going to be under construction at one time because we're going to try to minimize the length of time of impact on the medical campus by trying to complete these all at the same time.
Great. So, and that leads to the next one, impact. Is there any perceived impact on the current capacity of the facility to serve the needs of the community?
No, everything we're doing with this development is designed so that we're maintaining the existing facility that's being occupied and used in that format until such time as the improvements are completed, and then we get to repopulate into the adjacent spaces and keep the existing facility working and running. That's one of the reasons why we're adding temporary parking areas and other elements to make sure that we're maintaining those services that are at the level that they are right now at the medical campus.
Good. I know in some of the past projects, just because this project was going on, there was other stuff going on inside, and that created fun. The parking deck, that's two levels?
Two and a half. There's a small third level at the lower exit portion, which is down on this side over here as the
Okay.
secondary exit for it. It has a small portion at that lower level, but the majority of it's on the ground level and an upper level above it.
Right, so help me understand the pedestrian flow from the parking deck to the...
This right here is a covered walkway. It's set at the similar elevations to the main entrance floor elevation, so there's an ADA accessible pathway from this area over here, and there's a stack of elevators right at that corner of that building location, so that the people that are in the lower levels can have access to an elevator and get up to it, and the pedestrian access is a covered walkway across the access drive to the main entrance.
Okay, so it's at grade, the main pedestrian flow is at grade?
Yes.
And everything, okay, I wasn't clear. I saw the covered, I didn't know if that was also a walkway from the second deck. Okay, very good. Is there any consideration of pedestrian flow from the opposite side of the parking deck?
You mean at the lower level?
Correct.
We have walkways that connect it and connect it to up that area. The challenge with those are this segment of the roadway here is at about a 6.5% grade. It's not an ADA accessible pathway because of the necessity of the difference in elevation from the levels that we're accessing between the garage and those levels, but there is a pedestrian pathway that we can connect to that upper level if they're not concerned about the grades to get from one side to the other.
Okay.
The path of least resistance is to go to the elevators and go up to that level and use the covered walkway.
You're aware that people generally don't follow signs or sidewalks? Just throwing that out there. And then you answered the one question about the healing garden. Are there is rain gardens contemplated in this, or is there lead? Are you looking
Negative.
to lead on this?
No rain gardens with this. The central stormwater basin itself is a basin that's designed for water quality with soil amendments and plantings inside of it that also manages the rate of flow of discharge for the site. So that accomplishes a majority of all that.
That you would through rain gardens. So yeah, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, does that conclude your questions?
Yes, it did.
Excellent. All right, back to you, Rich.
Or me.
Eric. Just thinking.
Dustin, George.
Susan.
Okay, just 3 comments. First, let me say this is really exciting. You know, healthcare, quality healthcare is so critical to the quality of life around here. So it's really encouraging to see the center, you know, investing and expanding like this. Not just from the boomers' perspective, who seem to be the more frequent visitors, but just for the community in general. As far as sketch plan comments, high-level comments, in general, because of the location, the grade, the fact that it butts up against the 4-lane, it's really not a site that's very accessible by anything other than cars. It's a very car-oriented site. So to the greatest extent possible, through this expansion, that you can improve the pedestrian flow from the adjacent areas, and we're really just talking about probably Park Avenue, and then internally. You know, Rich's comment, we're about wellness here, and accommodating or encouraging walking through, by accommodating it helps. So yeah, we hear grade a lot when it comes to sidewalks, but engineers have ways to deal with grade. I'm not suggesting anything, I'm pointing it out as a 30,000 foot view comment. If there's anything you can do, that would be the first comment. Those things will be looked at by Planning Commission and by us. Okay? Don't want to take away
6
at
days out
all.
of the year, pedestrians use that road.
Pardon me?
6 days out of the year, pedestrians use that road.
Don't start that with us, Mark. You know, it works both ways. You know, you can design yourself out of pedestrian access by limiting pedestrian access, and you get those 6 days of the year. It was a general comment, it was not meant to take away at all from what you're doing here, but that's what site plan when you come to us with a site plan, this is the kind of stuff you're gonna get. Okay? The second thing, you mentioned signage. I think that's a great idea. We were in this room not that long ago when the hospital was looking for a variance to put the big H on the building. Is that the case again?
It was the Mount Nittany
They had
Light.
the big H, they wanted the big logo.
Right. So just so you understand, we know the difference between the generic H and branding. You know, if you want to, I understand the need in this competitive environment to get your brand out there. But you know, nobody's going to mistake that place for the hospital coming off of I-99, you know, or coming in. So I'm not sure exactly what you would need from us for your planned signage. Is what you're intending going to require a variance?
So we still have to start those detailed
I'm
conversations.
sorry, what was that?
We still have to start those detailed conversations
Okay.
with you. Yeah, this was just really the first step.
Because we've been
Showing
down that
some-
road. We were down that road not too long ago.
Right.
In any case, then, just last, I think it's great. I want to end on a positive note here. This is great. And if the look and the aesthetics meets the approval of our in-house planning commission architect, which it sounds like it does, that's all I got to hear. I got no issue with the height. I think that's just good land use. That's good planning, good sound planning.
Thanks, Eric. Dustin?
I guess I have a question, and I missed the question.
No,
period.
questions are welcome.
All right.
If there was anything overarching that would help clear everything else.
And I may have missed it because I stepped out for a couple minutes, but so is the central energy plant replacing an existing energy plant, or is it augmenting your energy needs?
Augmenting energy needs, there's an existing energy plant located on this portion that serves the existing facility, but it doesn't have capacity to serve the additions that we're doing, so we're adding a new energy plant that is intended to serve the medical tower and the needs of the parking deck.
Okay, so both will still be online. And are they of the same make and build, roughly, the two? You know, what powers them, you know, what is that?
I don't know if this will address your question. I mean, the new central energy plant will be designed per all current building codes and so forth. I mean, it's,
No, I mean, I'm actually just asking, you know, the source of, you know, your fuel source and then your wattage output. That's just what I'm interested in, that's all.
yeah, we could provide you with those details off the top of my head. I don't know that.
And the question just is along, and you probably know where I'm going, right? When we start, the center region is starting to count, you know, carbon load and things like that, and energy units. And so just as an awareness to that, you'll probably be asked those questions. You probably already have been. So, okay. And then just general comments though too. I mean, I think it's an excellent plan. Thank you. Who said lovely? That's such a great adjective. I'll resound the loveliness of it. The stormwater is excellent. Thank you.
Susan?
I had one last question. Is there any plan to increase, outpatient services? Will there be more traffic coming in for services that aren't currently being offered in the current facility because of size?
So we are, because we're relocating the front entrance, there are some existing departments that will be relocated within the facility, not added, just a relocation. I think the only outpatient service we are adding is a women's imaging center, which is, I think, approximately 6,000 square feet. And the parking demand study that Trans completed includes that little extra demand from the Women's Imaging Center into the overall parking count.
Is that replacing the breast care center in the Park Avenue building in front of the hospital? Or will that?
It's moving it from the.
It's moving it, okay. So it actually wouldn't increase too much traffic into the campus itself?
Into the campus
Okay.
itself, right. Mhm.
Any comments? Susan?
No, I thank you for your presentation.
Okay. Rich, back to you.
Hey, first and foremost, thank you so much for this sketch plan. We greatly appreciate that. I think it leads to a better process overall and everything. So applaud that. In general, again, I like the vertical utilization of this space as long as it's, accommodating to everybody. The only items that I had, and I would also touch on the stormwater stuff. Thank you for that from the bottom of Orchard Road.
From the bottom of Spring Creek.
But that, just as you're looking at this, the internal pedestrian flows and everything, and then reflection spaces, I think is critical. I was very happy to hear that the Healing Garden was gonna find new home, and I think you could probably have even more opportunities, just a bench here, there. Usually when you're at this site, it isn't always a great thing. And a walk off that nervous energy and a place to sit and reflect is critical. So, but thank you very much.
All right, I have just a few comments to follow up on and a couple more questions. So the one is, which I'm sure was talked about at the Planning Commission, is the 238 to 243 beds. You hear, this is the bed tower project. We're adding 5 beds and 3 buildings.
Sure.
Could you just...
How does the math work? Yeah. So most of the existing beds are semi-private, so 2 beds per room. So what this project does is it makes all the beds private rooms now.
Okay.
And then, can I
Good.
comment on this? So currently, we're licensed for 260 beds, and when this tower is complete, we'll be licensed for 260 beds. And right now, we have the capability to flex up to accommodate 260 patients, as will we have that capability when the bed tower comes on. So none of that changes. It allows flexibility with or without the bed tower. The change will be then the complement within that 260 of the number of private rooms.
Got you. Thank you for clarifying. Next, I too am going to bring up the walking access. You're actually looking at somebody who has walked home from the hospital at 4 o'clock in the morning after helping with the birth. So I have to say it's terrible. It's a long walk out and a long walk over. So, when I saw this plan, I did look at it, and I don't know. It's, again, like Eric said, we're just throwing the comment at you. I actually think if there was any way Orchard Road could access that side of the campus, I would really encourage you to pursue that. A hospital that people can only drive to is a hospital not in reach for everybody. So I'm just gonna leave that comment there. You don't even have to respond to it. But we do have pedestrian path along Orchard now, so I do think that could be an option. I don't even know if it's possible, but please do. Please just sit on the thought. Don't throw it away on your way out the door. Just think about it. Okay. On that note, are there sidewalk requirements in our ordinance for this kind of project?
Well,
It's a
With the-
UPD, we look at it as UPD.
yeah, with the medical campus, so it is similar to the UPD. And I do believe there are some sidewalks around. I will have to look into that a little bit further when they submit the preliminary
Okay.
final plan. We'll get that
Great.
figured out for them.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not exactly sure. I know that there's a relationship with Penn State and the land, and I don't know where the lot lines are. Anyway, just wanted to throw it out there. It's all complicated. It's all tied up. And then, you know what, when it comes to the wayfinding, I was gonna say, let us know, my personal feeling on it is let us know how we can help you. I do think it's important that people be able to find their way quickly when they're in a panic. So please do communicate your needs with us. That's my take on it.
And we do have a wayfinding consultant on our team. We're
Okay.
looking at not only wayfinding in the building, but also on campus as well.
Great, yeah, well, thank you. And that's it for me. Anything from the public? Please come to the lectern.
There or there?
Right there.
So we're not seeing the owl tonight.
Oh, the owl sees all.
The owl sees all.
Hi, my name is Pat Byrne. I'm a citizen of College Township. Being a citizen of College Township, and I don't want to rain on anybody's parade, who has their handle on the budget for this project?
The guy on Zoom.
Brian Roach,
I can answer that.
the CFO.
Being the chief financial officer, that's me. And then obviously with the governance and support of the community governed finance committee and system board of the health system.
And what is the range of the cost of this beautiful building?
We have budgeted $350 million.
Okay. But we're not adding many more beds, is what I'm hearing.
No, we are not. You know, the licensed beds remains consistent, 260 to 260. It does improve the experience of the patient with regards to a private room with a window. We are also upgrading the technology and the patient care flow on each of the units, so it's a better experience for the staff as well, caring for the patients, as well as actually upgraded facilities for staff, you know, with locker rooms, a dining area, a new kitchen. And so this will, when I talk about integrating, you know, best-in-class infrastructure and technology for our community, you know, it feeds on itself that it attracts then best-in-class folks. You know, we want to attract, retain, and develop the best talent. And in order to do that, you know, we have to give them the best infrastructure to work in and with. And all of that is in support of our mission to deliver world-class care to our community and patients.
One other question. Is there a possibility that in the future this could be a teaching hospital?
You know, we do partner with the university across a variety of medical education already. And so that is currently our status.
Okay, thank you. Beautiful building. The renderings are great. CAD has come a long way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vernon. Anyone else online or in the room? Eric?
Follow up on Pat's or Brian's answer. One of the reasons that this excites me the most is exactly what Brian said. I understand, he talked about attracting best in class. You know, I believe this type of investment will help in recruiting and retention of staff. As a local here, one of the reasons people leave and go to Danville or go to Hershey is potentially, at least the perception of care that they cannot get here or a higher level of care. So to the extent that this improvement helps bring that level or that quality of care here to Center County, that's what I'm most excited about as a resident of the area, not just as a College Township resident, but as someone who uses the hospital and understands how critical it is to our quality of life. So I think that's what Brian was saying, but I thought it was a really important point, and I just wanted to reiterate.
Thanks, Eric.
Yes, thank you. And I say this a lot internally with our team. You know, we want to attract, retain, and develop the best talent, give folks the best infrastructure, equipment, and technology to work with and in, and we want to streamline processes to elevate everyone's role in the organization. If we execute those three basic principles on a foundation of trust, it gives us the best opportunity to deliver world-class care and experience to our community and patients. So, and it feeds on itself.
Yeah, I want to see people coming here. People say, I want to go to State College, you know, for this treatment or to see this doctor.
Susan?
I have one last comment. I am an employee of the health system, and the $350 million investment is an important investment, and I can appreciate how we will improve that patient experience, and I know that we will attract world-class talent. And I know that's been a challenge, recruiting people to the area and getting that talent in and retaining that talent. and that's important. The only thing I would ask is that as the health system is thinking about this project and planning forward, $350 million is a lot to invest in terms of taking care of sick people. I would ask that the hospital's mission is healthier people, stronger communities, and I would ask the hospital to talk with us too about plans for preventative programs and services in the community addressing the needs that we know we see in the CHNA. So this is a very important piece for growth, but I'd like to see other things happening too in the preventative realm.
Thank you.
Well said, and we do have a lot of initiatives underway with regards to population health and preventative investments with regards to reducing utilization of our services and providing a healthier community. And I think that would be, we would welcome the opportunity to present some of those ideas in a public forum.
I would very much appreciate hearing them, Brian, so I appreciate hearing that tonight.
As I choke in the distance. Sue Smith.
Hi, I didn't hear the full presentation, but the main complaint I ever hear about the hospital is the emergency room. That people wait 5-6 hours, that their facility isn't nice, and it's not just from old people like me, but children with injuries, lots of different things, and I didn't hear anything about, is that one service that will be improved? More room, whatever it needs, I don't know.
All right, so I think the question is the emergency room at all a part of this investment plan?
So Sue, I'm sorry to hear that there were some bad experiences at the health system. While the ED is not, directly involved with regards to this upgrade or, tower project, I will say that as we build out these private rooms, and we improve our flow, it will allow the ED to be improved in their processes and flow if folks need to be admitted, which then allows for folks that are waiting to get in to see a physician or their staff sooner. So it indirectly impacts and improves other parts of our operation.
Thank you. Thank you. I just, in part of that conversation, it did occur to me that a multimodal path to the campus would not just be used by sick people, but it would also be used by employees, which is probably more so than by sick people. So as you're talking about recruiting talent and recruiting staff, I would think that would be something that I would think people would look for maybe when they're looking at a place that they want to work and like to work, being able to get there any other way than a car. So I'll end my little speech on the connection.
Yeah, and you're right, it's not just the path to and from the health center, it's actually, within our campus. You see on beautiful days, we have good views from up there, folks taking a lunch break and walking around, getting, some fresh air. So, that is part of the conversations we're having right now of how can we improve the outdoor areas to facilitate that respite, if you will.
Great, thank you. Anything else? All right, terrific. Thanks so much for bringing this to Planning Commission and then to us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next we have reports, manager's update.
Thank you, Ms. Chair. To start things off tonight, this is going to be my last report for, maybe a month on Pike Street. We finally have the 2022 Pike Street project is actually completed for the balance of, let me start that over. As I was contemplating
That was terrifying.
It didn't come out the way I intended. Anyway, Pike Street. We're done with what we planned to get done in 2022. The last couple of elements there were the handrail installation as well as some of the parking signs. So there's still some cleanup work. We still have some landscaping, obviously, to take care of. A few things like that come the spring, but we are still shooting for a springtime type dedication for Pike Street. So moving on from that, we're going to be talking a little bit later this evening with respect to the Dale Summit Small Area Plan and Form-Based Code. So I'll leave those comments for the moment. The one thing I do want to take a little bit of time tonight to talk about is the LTAC evaluation and recommendation for Center Hills Village, that process. On January 11th, LTAC did meet, and at that meeting, they did have a review of materials that have been prepared that are poised to go out as part of the voting process for the proposed traffic calming installations in the Center Hills Village neighborhood. And again, just a quick refresher, those installations involve 7 speed humps on Oak Ridge and 7 speed humps on Shamrock. And the materials that were prepared were actually developed by me. That was what was reviewed by the LTAC committee and approved to go out along with the ballot. So beginning tomorrow, tomorrow, all the ballots to 145 property owners will be in the U.S. mail to be delivered. Voting, return voting, is only by mail or by drop box here to the township building. And that starts on Monday the 23rd and will run until Friday, February 3rd at the close of business, 5 o'clock. So the parameters for the vote are indicated in the materials that have gone out, which unfortunately I did not manage to get those into your packet. I have them here for distribution so that members of council know what is going out. If you happen to be, if somebody makes an inquiry of you, you will have that. But just to roughly give you an idea what needs to happen, there's 145 property owners, deed owners. Every deed owner gets a vote. A minimum of 60% have to be returned. It's kind of a two-step criteria for an affirmative vote to move forward with the project. So a minimum of 60% of the votes need to be returned to the township, which with 145 properties, that equates to at least 87 votes have to be returned. And of those 87 minimum votes to be returned, 66% of those votes have to be in favor of the project in order for it to meet the threshold to proceed to funding and to construction. So we will know on February 3rd or the following Monday after all votes have been tabulated where we stand. Did we meet the threshold, number one? Did we have the 60% participation that's required? And then number two, of that participation, was there 66% that were in favor of moving forward with the project? So I just wanted to be sure that I took a brief moment to go over that process. I believe that the materials that will be mailed to the study area and to the parcel owners in the study area are objective and clearly convey the project, what it would be, how it's going to work, and how the vote will operate. So I just wanted to take the moment to go over that, and I will distribute these to council here before the end of the meeting or before you leave this evening. Please stop by and I'll be sure that you get one of these. Moving on here very quickly, we have completed the Spring Creek Park Master Plan elements at this point in time. So this will be the last time that you see the Spring Creek Park Master Plan listed on the manager's update. We'll be removing that since all those elements have been completed. We took care of some of the business this evening with respect to Thompson Woods Preserve. I did have an opportunity to communicate with State College Borough Manager Tom Fontaine. I understand that the borough may be delayed until perhaps as late as March with their appointees to the governance board. But we've been very pleased with the advisory committee appointments that have been made. Both Valamont and the Thompson Woods neighborhood of both those HOAs have made appointments, and we have a number of appointments from the other participants on the advisory committee. And with your actions this evening, we're beginning to fill that out. And unfortunately, there has been no movement with CFA, the Commonwealth Finance Agency, in announcing any grant awards with respect to the Path to Campus project, for which we have a grant submitted to CFA. And lastly, just as information, I know it will come up later in some of the consent agenda as far as correspondence. There is a Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board hearing that has been scheduled for the SC gaming license for the 25th of January. So with that, if there are any questions, I'd be happy to try to address them.
Looking for questions from council? None? Come to the lectern.
Pat Vernon, College Township. Adam, will you be tabulating no votes?
We will. We'll tabulate yes and tabulate no.
Because being that they're being mailed tomorrow,
Correct.
and not much happens over the weekend, there may be people that don't receive this in a timely manner.
How long do they have to
With your tabulation
reply?
coming so quickly.
Oh, no. The
I'm
tabulation,
thinking to go
the votes
additional
won't be tabulated until the close of the voting period, which is February 3rd at 5 o'clock.
Okay,
So they will be received by the township. We will collect those. They won't be opened, they won't be tabulated until the close of the voting period on February 3rd at 5 o'clock.
thank you.
I misunderstood.
Yeah, thank you. Good clarifying question there. Yes, please, come to the lectern.
Maureen Corey. If there are not 66% returned, what happens?
There needs to be at least 60%
60%?
returned, which would be at least a minimum of 87 of the 145. If that is the case and it misses that threshold, the vote basically is null and void, technically speaking. I think that, it would then at that point go back to LTAC for a final determination about the next steps. But by the strict standards that we have relative to the traffic calming guidelines that we're utilizing, it needs to hit that 60% return before you can move forward to the next step, which is of those returned that meet the threshold, another 66% need to be in favor of moving forward.
So if 60% are not returned,
That's correct.
you do nothing?
It does not move forward, it would go back to LTAC. And we have a couple of members of council sit on the LTAC committee, and I don't want to steal their thunder, so.
Oh, steal away.
You did a great job in describing it.
Yeah, Noreen, thank you for that question. That's a good question. It is my understanding that not meeting the 60% threshold is akin to it coming back as over the 60% threshold, but most of them being no. The project doesn't move forward. So what we had discussed, should that happen, because council has had a stance that we understand that something needs to be done for this community, should that happen, it will go back to LTAC to make a determination as to what they will do next. Perhaps it will be, okay, let's reconvene a new neighborhood committee and come up with another plan. But they're going to keep trying this for a little bit longer, even if that vote doesn't come back positive.
Thank you.
That's my understanding. You're welcome. All right, any further questions or comments for the manager? All right.
Just on that, Adam, what was, and maybe you don't have this answer yet, the expectation for the communication? How long are we thinking it's going to take staff to process it and then communicate out the results?
I think that we will know rather quickly. The intent is to formally announce the results via the LTAC committee itself. So we'd like to try to convene a meeting of LTAC shortly after the close of the voting process. So sometime in that first full week of February, we'd like to try to convene a meeting of LTAC. I have to give that a little bit more thought, but at this point in time, that was always the objective, is for LTAC to have the opportunity to make the announcement.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. All right, so that brings us to COG committee reports. There are a bunch. And as chair, the way I like to do these is I really appreciate the written draft. This goes in the public record. This is, what can be brought up down the line. And I do appreciate everybody this isn't it, so pretending that's it. People filling that form out and sharing it with the rest of council. And I genuinely anticipate that we're reading each other's reports. So the comments at the meetings, if we could keep it to questions of council, maybe the big headline of the meeting, I would appreciate that. That'll help us carry through. If we find that we need to go and spend more time on these topics, then we can always do that. But if we could, give the summary and ask any questions for this evening. So let's see, Dustin. You have a handful.
Yeah, so I had 4 committees I attended. One of them was our IDA, and we had update from Adam on that earlier. The HR committee, so I submitted reports for HR, Parks and Parks Capital, and the Spring Creek Watershed Commission. I did submit them early this morning, so please do read them. And really, HR and Parks Capital reorg meetings, so it's setting priorities. The biggest thing I did want to point out for what council needs to consider is Spring Creek Watershed Commission. So the commission had on their agenda the approval of the new revised proposed bylaws that we did get sent out by Paul Takak before he left and had a chance to look over. We did receive feedback that Harris Township would like to have a little deeper dive with that. So we did vote then to go ahead and, basically move that action to our next meeting, and we're hoping to achieve that in the 15th February meeting. So my request to council is that perhaps we could have an addition to the old business agenda on our 2nd of February, just to review that one last time and give our final, comments, if any.
Is that amenable to council? Great, okay.
Okay, that's it.
Thank you. Eric?
Yeah, I sent reports out on both of mine. The first one was facilities on Tuesday the 10th, and then I met our Lucy Committee, Land Use and Community Infrastructure, met Friday the 13th. Nothing beyond what's in the report to report on the Lucy Committee on Friday the 13th, but I would like to just note from my report, facilities on the 10th, back in the previous calendar year, the Facilities Committee agreed that long-range capital improvement plan was needed. When we got to the presentation for the format staff was suggesting we take, there seemed to be a couple of folks stepping back, at least in their enthusiasm for it, and more specifically, doubting the value of 20-year projections. I just want you folks to know that as your representative of the Facilities Committee, I happen to believe very strongly in the capital and long-range capital improvement plan, fully recognizing that 20 years is a bit of a guess, but you got to put something out there, and you do your best that you can because you're continuously updating it every couple of 5 years, whatever. But the main reason is we can't ask the taxpayers to support these very large capital improvement projects that we hope intend to last 20, 30, 40 years if we don't have a plan, a 20-year capital improvement plan. So that's the message I will be carrying forward as the facilities. Yes, some of it's going to be a guess. It's going to be our best guess, but that's what we need to do. You know, I've been involved in, well, you know, all my years in my professional life, we couldn't have existed without a capital improvement plan. Were we taking some guesses 20 years out? Absolutely. Heck, some of our guesses, 10 years were guesses. But the exercise, I believe, is important and necessary. So to the extent that that message needs to be carried forward so that we invest the time in those 20-year projections, I'll be doing that.
And I just want to reiterate to Eric that council supports that attitude on facilities.
Yeah, I have a comment towards
Go
that.
ahead.
We don't need that plan until we have to renew a lease, then everybody says, why aren't we building a building? Instead, why are we paying, why are we renting
Right, all of a
space
sudden.
instead of whatever? You know, the parks maintenance comes to mind, the active adult comes to mind, the parks office comes to mind. That all bleeds into your long-range plan.
Yes.
And everything, so.
So if those same folks were paying attention to the discussions and debates we'd had, it would have answered their own question.
Exactly.
Right.
I think, so.
Right.
Just as a question to that, and that what came to mind of mine was, and I didn't elaborate on it for my report for Parks Capital, was the boardwalk, right? Does that fall underneath facilities? I don't know exactly, but, you know, just to kind of give some fuel to your fire, right? That was kind of a 20-year thing, right? The boardwalk
Yeah.
was built, and then 20 years, now it needs replaced.
I mean, we just heard from MPO staff about it, the 12-year plan. I mean, look at what they're doing, the effort they're putting into just 12 years, and the dollar infrastructure is, you know, sizable. We're talking about something similar.
Yeah, and I think COG would argue, staff would argue, that kind of planning and that kind of staying on top of it takes monetary investment and takes staff time, takes staff. So we just also need to keep that in mind as conversations move forward about budget.
Right. The whole genesis of the facilities committee is that we woke up one day and COG had a whole bunch of stuff.
COG had a hole.
And they had no plan to replace or upgrade or whatever that stuff. And so that bore into the birth of the facilities, which then led to a whole person assigned to facilities that wasn't there before. Prior to that, it was an additional duty of our already staffed or burdened staff, agency directors and everything, who also, that's not necessarily their best skill set and everything. So that, I mean, that, they've taken the right steps, don't stop now, I guess is you're on the path.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. Any other reports?
No.
Any questions? I also forgot to ask, did anybody have questions for Dustin?
Not really a question, but just a comment. The one thing, so the bylaw, the IDA bylaws have been adopted, correct?
Yes.
Okay. The only thing from our comments at the last meeting that I see didn't get fixed, and I know it's an operational issue, we experienced it, was under the membership, where it says council shall appoint for 5 years. And then it also says that they must stagger. I will tell you from experience that those two came into conflict in the past. So our recommendation was no greater than or less than or whatever, you know, something, just simple language.
That was not true.
Not something to slow anything up or whatever, but next time you're looking at it, that they're looking at updating the bylaws, it's something that could go in there. The other thing I would just point out, in their bylaws, they tell council that they shall appoint a liaison. They can't tell council that they shall appoint a liaison. We respect it, that it's there, but it's not really appropriate in their bylaws. kind of thing. So I just, a couple notes for future updates of the bylaws. They're much better than they were. They're much, much better.
Don't throw the baby out.
But, you know, and Rich, that brings on a broader point of, you know, maybe perhaps, you know, trying to institute a periodic review of these type of documents. I ran into it when I was, you know, at Spring Creek last evening, right? You know, in general, you know, some of these things are 10+ years old, right? So, yeah, it's a little dated.
Well, I think we actually talked about that as a potential task of the governance committee, that they have periodic review. They didn't have a governance committee before.
Yeah.
So it is wholly appropriate that they review that on a periodic basis, and the IDA can decide what that periodic basis is.
Sure.
Hey, since Rich brought it up, some needed clarification from our discussion 2 weeks ago about this, yeah. And this might be my fault, because maybe I didn't ask the question correctly. I was getting what I thought was conflicting answers from Bill about how I understood the structure.
You're talking about
IDA, I'm talking about
Spring Creek Watershed Commission. I just want to make sure we all aren't talking about the same thing.
My understanding has always been that we appoint someone and we empower them to make the decisions. The only things that come back to the member municipalities are not the bylaws.
No.
It's whatever would be the articles of incorporation, whatever would be to form the group, or in some cases, actions outside the original scope. You know, if they were to take on projects that were outside the original scope. But everything else, and this was confusing in that, you know, because Bill was somewhat indicating that the bylaws would come back to us for approval. No. That's not how my understanding is that it's structured. The bylaws, we make you make the bylaws, you adopt them, and you follow them.
That was a courtesy.
Yeah, it was an olive branch, right?
I think there was some confusion early on that, yes, it had to come back to the elected officials for approval. And 3C of the bylaws states that the members are capable of amending the bylaws as required.
Yeah, okay. And I know you already did that.
Well
but
cited.
More the philosophical issue is that you're our rep, you know.
Yeah, and so if you look at it, I think the more in-depth look at it is coming from hey, we want to really, maybe we didn't look at the articles of agreement as closely as we should have in conjunction with the bylaws. We just want to make sure they're cohesive. I think that's where it came from.
Sounds like you guys are on track now, or the confusion's been cleared.
Well, a lot of people can't even find their intergovernmental agreement, so.
Yeah.
That makes it tough to see how the two compare.
Exactly.
So I speaking to typical structure with typical intergovernmental agreements. It's possible that one is different, but I would hope it isn't.
It's pretty straightforward.
Good.
Yeah, and I can share that too, back around everybody.
Great. Any further questions or clarification on that? All right, Susan.
I reported out on the COG Public Safety Committee. The two main issues that came up, there was an extensive discussion about the recent sinkhole problem out in Patton Township at Christmas. There were 18 homes that were affected and people were displaced. And in center area, region, county, we don't have any really, we don't have long-term disaster relief resources. I think what Scott Kaufman shared is that he realized that he wasn't able to find resources for people who might not have insurance. And the other takeaway was many people in the area probably don't have sinkhole insurance. And so that was a concern. We had nothing in place to help people who were having these problems. And then the other issue that came up is that there may be, the Port Matilda Ambulance Company may be shutting down. And that will be putting more pressure on Center Lifelink and also on the Mount Nittany Medical Center, the paramedic system. And I think there are 2 people who are now staffing, volunteers who are staffing the Port Matilda Company. And I know there's a discussion out in Julian at the Grange Building this coming Tuesday on that closure. So. a pending problem for
Important
the community.
topics, yeah.
Yeah. Those were the main topics.
Any questions for Susan?
Just, you indicated that Pam Robb was the chair. Who was
Yes.
the vice chair?
Patty Stevens.
Patty Stevens, very good. And then on the public safety arena, just so that you're aware, if you weren't, that COG staff and myself as the chair till Monday, COG chair till Monday, and the incoming COG chair are going to be meeting with Penn State tomorrow in the first discussion of reviewing the agreement between
The emergency
between the
preparedness.
fire
Okay.
service agreement between Penn State and the center region. Basically, right now, it's a handshake deal, so we're trying to formalize that, so.
All right, thank you. Rich?
Yeah, unfortunately, I did not squeeze in a written report. Finance met on January 12th, last Thursday, mostly reorg, one new member, so the continuity in finance is appreciated. That includes the chair and the vice chair were reelected for 2023. The big thing that we spent our time with is out of the 2023 budget process. We're already starting to talk about the 2024 budget process. Three key items on that: the timeline to try to sync to municipalities, the priorities from the municipalities, and then also the reinstitution of a form of guideline that isn't just arbitrary and everything. That's going to be a big lift for us in 2023, and as such, usually I come to you with a long list of priorities for the Finance Committee. We only have 4. One is the budget process, one is the fund balance policy, and the other 2 are dependent on our facilities friends, the funding of the CIP and fleet management. So that's how we'll be spending our time. We sent that forward to the executive committee, which I'm sure Carla will mention, and they concurred with us for those priorities.
Yes. Any questions for Rich? No? Good. Yeah, I had a couple committee meetings. One was executive committee, where all the chairs of the center region meet for COG. And so for chair, new COG chair this year, we recommended Mr. Barlow, which will be officialized at the COG General Forum as chair, and then Mr. Cervello from Half Moon Township as vice chair. You can read my report, you'll see everything, you'll see 99% of it again at General Forum, but there was one thing I wanted to point out. Rich talked about the fund balance policies and things like that, but I did want to mention that we also recommended appointment of Mr. Frank to the Whitehall Road Regional Park Coordination Team. That was a unanimous vote, so that will also come to General Forum. I'm sure he would appreciate your support when it comes time to vote on that.
Well, I think executive committee appointed, I just got word today.
Oh, it was official?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That I have a slot in the general forum agenda. So
Oh, you're already reporting?
Yes. So
Okay.
I'll be reporting various things.
I will also say that Ferguson Township plans to appoint a owner representative as a part owner of the land, or as a full owner of part of the land, I suppose. So, I don't know, something like that. So there will be somebody else represented on that coordination team. And any other questions about executive committee? Okay, I also attended Climate Action Sustainability Committee, which is discussed in the report I sent at that time. Planning Commission, we have 2 representatives tonight. You're gonna fight for report? Arm wrestle?
Well, good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Robert Hoffman, and I have been appointed the primary representative to the council from the Planning Commission. And also, I would like to introduce our alternate.
I'm Noreen Corey, the alternate.
Thank you.
I thought it would be appropriate to have Noreen join me tonight, because in an effort to try to streamline and make sure we give you consistent reporting throughout the year, Noreen and I are going to double team you. We'll try to do it in a way that's not confusing to the council. Perhaps as we get going, 1 month Noreen, 1 month Bob, and so forth. Noreen wants to become more active in our Planning Commission deliberations, and I think this is a great time to allow her to have that opportunity. Our meeting on Tuesday was kind of interesting. We had 3 major projects that we looked at. One was a federal credit union, the Arctic's Federal Credit Union, which is a proposed 2-story building on the corner of Benner Pike and Ellis Place. It was a land development plan, preliminary land development plan. For the most part, the sketch plan that came before us was well approved by the Planning Commission, so this was a more formal technical application. There were some questions from the Planning Commission about the use of the solar panels infringing upon some of the other property, which you'll see eventually as it comes in front of you. But that brought up some questions from staff as to whether there's enough space because of that array that it can be logically developed as a functional piece of property. So that was one question we did not resolve, but we kind of have that as an open item for you to consider when it's presented. Some of the positive things, we asked them in the sketch plan to try to be more creative with the landscaping, which is directly connected to the sidewalks. And they did so. And I think they did a nice job. You'll be able to see that and critique that, but from the Planning Commission standpoint, I think we're very pleased with that. The building, architecturally, we were given perspectives at the sketch plan stage. Very positive. I think it'll be a great contribution to the visual Benner Pike corridor. And so although it's not a zoning requirement, it was nice to see those sketches and see where they're headed. One of the items that caught a little bit of attention is the main entrance to the facility, which is a financial bank facility, is off of Ellis Place, and that makes sense. It takes major traffic off the Benner Pike and turning considerations and leads them through the property. They do have an exit off of the Benner Pike. The exit would be to go towards State College. The entrance would be from Bellefonte to State College, which we thought was a little bit confusing, although there are other examples in the township, as pointed out by Dawn, of that type of situation. But I think the thing that you might want to look at, because we did not resolve this, was if that becomes an entrance, not only for the federal or for the bank, but also for this new development that's going in there might want to be some reconsideration of entry as an entry system. I know we try to minimize sometimes access onto a site to keep it clean and simple. We did not comment on that. We have actually, as the Planning Commission, we approved the land development plan to be submitted to you, that I think is some of the components of our discussion was that access in and out, and also some of the restrictions that might be placed on that third piece of property. But we're encouraged. I think it's a good design, well thought out. Anxious to see the architecture because it's kind of a new way of building buildings. And landscaping looks great, so we approved it to send to you. The second, I'm going to really briefly just describe this sketch plan that we got from Mount Nittany, which you have already discussed, so I don't need to go into that. The one thing that we were interested in was that when we came to the meeting, you know, you only add five beds to a tower, and they'll go, really? But the rationale is kind of interesting. What we heard was, and I don't think it was mentioned tonight, that when you have two people in a room, sometimes because of the medical conditions that are with the people, you cannot optimize that room, i.e. use the second bed. But when you have private bedrooms, you then can use 100% of your bed capacity. And I thought that was kind of interesting. So other than that, we were excited about the plan. We were excited about the way they interfaced with the Alpha Car Company and with other traffic studies. It is a very complex site when you drive in there. And I think that we're going to be looking forward to see how they prescribe the entry experience from a user. So that one I can let go with. The third one, you know, Lindsay, if I go off base, please help me. We were presented with an enormous amount of technical information and reports about the Maxwell request to rezone property. The information came at Struble Road. This is at Struble Road, and it presently is a site for the Maxwell operations. They're quite frankly running out of space, the land that they have. And the type of space that they're running out of is just storage of vehicles and also parking. So they came in front of the various components in the county to explore rezoning roughly. They have some adjacent property owned by Maxwell. They wanted to take, which is around 31 acres. And they wanted to take about 3 acres of that and rezone that from forest to industrial. And you know, as we all look at spot zoning and we all have those ideas in our mind, we looked at that as a commission, a planning commission. They're not requesting, they could have, but they're not requesting sanitary service. And because of that, those 3 acres is going to really limit what they can do on that property. Pretty much limited to car storage, building storage of cars or parking. Maybe some solar and maybe some infrastructure components like transformers and so forth. So we felt that that land would be protected. It wouldn't infringe upon the other remaining area of the 31 acres to infringe upon the mountain. And that was one of our concerns. So we unanimously, and I am shortcutting this, approved the zoning request to go from forest to industrial, given the conditions that are presented. And I am sure that you'll have that packet that you can read that really supports it from other organizations in the community, such as the school district, the fire company, the Center Region Planning Commission, and so forth and so forth. So we have voted to submit this to council for your consideration with our approval. Other than that, we look forward this year We look forward to give you comprehensive reports consistently and welcome your acceptance. If you feel that, if you have any comments on our presentation as we go through this, feel free to contact me and let me know so that we can adjust anything.
Great.
Thank you.
Dare I say that was a lovely report. Any questions?
Never will I use that word.
I forgot that was you. I was making fun of Dustin.
Although the important thing is that this is new for Noreen, but it's also new for me. But I want to help her through the process so she's confident, and I know she will be. I'm going to take the month of February, and we'll be here together so that we can learn, and then we may start dividing it up.
Great. So before you leave, any questions for PC?
For the record, I attributed the lovely comment to Mr. Forziat.
Okay. Anything else? Yeah, go ahead.
Going back to the first plan,
Yes.
the Federal Credit Union.
Yeah, Arise.
Yeah, the angst that you said Planning Commission had was the same concerns that I expressed at the sketch plan.
Okay.
They're anticipating PennDOT will only approve a right-in and right-out off of College Avenue, but they've also located it in such a manner that will also serve the undeveloped adjacent parcel.
Yes.
Well, we've all seen this before. You know, the traffic coming from State College doesn't turn left on Shiloh Road to go into Sheets. You know, to take a left on Shiloh Road and go down and enter. They make the illegal left turn into the right in and right out. And we just saw that they're putting the same thing in place and expecting a different result. Well, we know that's not going to work. So our suggestion was, or my suggestion was, which seemed to be supported, was that they design that in a manner so that you physically can't make that left. So my point is that if you guys are uncomfortable with that, feel free to incorporate that into your recommendation, because that was very much in line with some of the concerns that were expressed by this body at the sketch plan.
Right, Eric, I think that I have to be fair. One of the things that we have to be careful of is that we don't necessarily sit here and offer just our personal comments. It has to come from the committee. It was true that I had a very strong concern about that. That was backed up by maybe one or two other people, but
Okay, it wasn't a consensus then.
but what you're saying is, it is an issue that I think we're not just kicking the can down the road. We probably could have been a little bit more specific, but I believe that is going to be an interesting conversation. I hate to, one of the reasons that it was hard to make strong recommendations was because of the array of solar panels infringing upon that area. It looks like it could be a question, and I know staff has mentioned that it may not be developable, and they may have to back some of those solar panels off so they have a clean piece of property. But your point about safety and circulation, I think we agree with.
Okay.
And
So-
it'll be given to you as a land development plan here, I'm sure, soon. Is that right, Ann?
Yes, February.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
there were at least some members who were concerned about the same
Yes,
thing.
yeah, it
but not
wasn't
enough
just-
to make it a condition or to make it, okay.
Yeah, now there were other conditions put on there. One of the things that came up was the fencing, I believe, that wasn't shown on the plan for the solar panels, because they have so many front yard setbacks on that piece of property that they have to be within a certain distance setbacks, and therefore that's not shown on the plan. And of course, then we have the transportation study and a few other things that staff recommended. So it's being sent to you hopefully with the awareness that we are aware of that condition about access.
That's all I have.
Great,
And
thank you.
also might mention that we are, as a planning commission, very happy about the support we get from staff. It's amazing and very thorough, to the point, so we appreciate that.
Thank you. And
Thank you.
and I just want to say, we really, these reports to council really do help inform us and keep us in the loop and keep us aware of what's coming down the road, and also when, what your concerns are. So anytime there's not consensus, feel free to give us a taste of that too, because sometimes it's just one planning commission's comment that aligns with all of council's feeling, right? And it helps us know, not just what the vote ended up being, but also what some of the discussion was. So we really appreciate that in the reports. Yeah. Thank you to both of you. Don?
Regarding the entrance, what I'd like to say is I talked with our transportation engineer, and they're going through the TIS now, and PennDOT has not commented on that. And, ultimately, it's their road, and they're well aware of what happens at Sheetz all the time. So as of now, they have not commented on it. Now, Nick did make that comment, why aren't you doing the left hands in? So, I mean, that's still out there, but...
So they may not be restricted to right in, right out, is what you're saying? That could be a full intersection?
Well, I'm thinking, yes, they will, because PennDOT did not say anything, from what I understand, like, you need to revisit that, so...
Because it's already showing right in, right out?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
All right,
I've got something.
Okay.
I'm sorry. There was a request to defer the sidewalk along the complete property line, which goes from the entrance off of the Benner Pike west until the adjacent property.
Okay.
That was, we agreed with that. It was presented to us as we want to make sure we know what's going on before we do creative landscaping, which will require. And so, but we did defer that. There is a 2-year limit on that, so that after 2 years, as staff has explained to us, if nothing happens, it goes in.
Okay, great. Thank you for adding that. All right, next we have DEI reports. Anything from the public? This is an opportunity for public, council, and staff to give any items for diversity, equity, inclusion in our community. So seeing none from the public, anything from council? Yeah.
Madam Chair, I had the honor of being invited and attending the Martin Luther King Jr. banquet held by the Forum on Black Affairs on Sunday the 15th. A lovely event.
Yes.
And well received, almost 800 people. It was held on the floor of the Bryce Jordan Center.
Wow.
Excellent speakers. Penn State's president spoke at length. And the borough, just as a reference, borough had 2 tables there. I was able to sit with our former member, now Representative Takak, and as well as Commissioner Higgins.
Excellent.
And definitely encourage you, if you have the opportunity in the future, to attend.
Thank you. Anything else? Not to put staff on the spot, I was just wondering if there was any forward motion with regard to the human trafficking awareness.
As we had discussed, there have been flyers that have been posted.
Oh, great.
On our exterior billboards on both sides, as well as throughout the building on
All right.
our bulletin boards.
Thank you
So
for
we do
that.
have those. Yes, I was a little disappointed in some of the printable posters that were available, but there are posters that have been printed with the necessary information.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Thank you. And with that, we will move along to the consent agenda. All right, so I will use my most updated one. CA1, approval of December 22nd special meeting minutes. CA2, receipt and approval of the following correspondence. A letter from PennDOT regarding response to College Township letter about the S-curve. B, a letter from Center County MPO regarding a response to College Township letter regarding the S-curve. C, an email from Daniel Materna about a casino. D, email from Andrew Schaefer about casino. E, letter from Pantera Engineering regarding 90-day time extension request for the Canterbury Crossing phases 4 and 5. CA3, approval of the following action item, audit services proposal from Fiore Fideli Snyder Carothers, 2022 to 2026. Would anybody like any of those pulled?
Did you raise your hand? Just CA1, that correction that was recognized.
That was updated for this meeting?
Was it?
I don't believe it's been updated, but the correction has been noted. That was a correction to one of the motions that were recorded incorrectly in the minutes that are in the packet.
Great.
So that motion will be corrected before those are finalized.
Okay, so then we don't need to pull it.
Yeah.
What I'm seeing in the consent agenda on Dropbox is correct.
Did it get in Dropbox?
I thought that's what Jen...
My apologies, and Jen may have already taken care of that. I didn't look at the Dropbox, so.
Okay. All right, thanks for checking on that, Rich. Then, with no further comments or polling, I will accept a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second?
Second
Anybody?
the motion?
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and opposed, same sign. All right, motion passes unanimously. Next, we have OB1, Dale Summit Area Plan, Form-Based Zoning. Lindsay?
Thank you. This is the second time council has seen the scope for our services with DPZ co-design. And this time we included the consultant services contract. We took council's comments and incorporated them. We then sent the scope and the contract to DPZ where they had the chance to make comment. Nothing substantive came out of their reviews, so the scope and the contract are in front of you, and most importantly, the quote that they gave us did not change because of some of the changes we did make to the scope. So these are here for your review and hopefully approval this evening.
All right, thanks, Lindsay. All right, Rich, we'll start with you.
I had nothing to add. I appreciate all the work that's gone into it at this point. I'm looking forward to moving forward.
Yeah. Susan?
Nothing to add?
Dustin?
Nothing to add.
And Eric?
Same thing.
Wow. All right. That was the golden agenda item
Carla threatened us.
for the evening. Any comments from the public before I really, All right, great. Do you need anything from us?
Yes.
Yeah, it says action. I just can't find it.
Yeah, it's the bottom of the memo, action requested.
Yeah, there should be a motion that A, approves the scope of work, and B, accepts the contract, or authorizes the execution of the contract, which DPZ co-designed.
One more thing, we have CN Antonio from DPZ online, just kind of hanging out in case there were any questions for them.
Well, I will give you an opportunity to say something if you would like to do so.
Hello, good evening, gentle folk. Can you hear me?
Yes, very well, thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to sit in on this meeting. And just short and sweet, we are very excited to formally start work with the township. I speak on behalf of my fellow partner and the partner that's going to be in charge, Marina Curry. I believe she has met some, if not all of you, on prior visits to the township. And we're happy to hear that you have no comments on the contract, so let's get going.
Excellent, that's what we like to hear. Great, thank you. All right, so with no further discussion, if anyone would care to offer something?
Madam Chair, I would
That's
move
it.
to approve the scope of work for the development and implementation of a form-based code for the Dale Summit area. And two, following approval of the scope, award a contract to DP, do you need these? as
Yeah,
two
are these separate?
You could actually run them together, to be honest.
Okay.
It'll be fine.
Including that scope of, approval of that scope of work, award a contract to DPZ co-design in the amount of $299,995 with additional reimbursable expenses not to exceed $25,000. The project fees and hourly rates are as included in our agenda package.
A second.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? All right, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Staff informatives. Staff.
There's nothing specific. I would call your attention to the update from engineering and zoning. I think they've done a nice job with that to give you a kind of an overview and breadth of what is going on and what staff has been working on relative to those issues or those matters. And beyond that, it's typical information that we usually try to provide on a monthly basis from UAJA, as well as our ordinance enforcement officer report. But there's nothing specific that I'd like to comment on.
Sure. Any questions about staff informatives?
I always enjoy the staff informatives. You guys do a good job. Thanks.
Yeah, it's good. It's good reading. All right, council staff other matters. Yes.
If there's nothing else from council, just a reminder about the special meeting that has been scheduled. I thank you for your prompt responses. We'll be meeting January 20th, Monday, January 20th at 5 p.m. this room to continue our discussion on the Center Region Climate Action Adaptation Plan and sneakily start to have that discussion. I'm sorry, January 30th, and sneakily start that discussion into our CIP as well. So
Ooh.
they dovetail, as
Look
we've
at that.
talked about earlier.
I knew you were going there.
Excellent. Thank you all for filling that out in a timely manner. Anything else for the good of the order? Seeing and hearing none, I will accept a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
All right, and we're adjourned.
Yeah.